council staff. So, without further ado, would Councillor King, would you like to do a karakia, please? Thank you. Councillors, can you make sure your microphones are on, working, ready for action? And the meeting has been live streamed. Are we good to go? Apologies. We have an apology from His Worship the Mayor, which of course is understandable, and we note that he's doing really well, which is fantastic. So we're delighted with his progress. Any other apologies?
Apology, Madam Chair, from Roseanne Jolins, Councillor Jolins. I'm going to just take this chance to welcome Jill Richardson into the chamber, who's going to speak to item 4.1.
Absolutely, thank you. Welcome, Jill. Nice to see you. Do we have a mover and a seconder for the apologies, please? Thank you, Councillor Rankin and Councillor Kingy. All those in favour? Against? Right, carried. Okay, so confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of December 2018. Do we have any discussion about those minutes, please? Any queries? All fine? Do I have a mover, please? That was a mover. Thank you, Councillor Rankin. I know it was a wave. And seconded by Councillor Boddy. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Right. Item 4.1, which is the petition for Lower Spa Road. And welcome, Jill Richardson, who would like to come up and talk to us about this petition. So welcome today. Lovely to see you.
I'm just here to formally present the petition that was somewhat hastily put together just before Christmas. I had, so that's my petition. I'd had, had made several phone calls to the council staff to discuss the state of Spa Road and the amount of traffic. I was unsuccessful in being able to communicate, and after several weeks a lady did ring me, but she said that due to the regulations that exist at the moment, it's not possible. You are not legally allowed to put in crossings on Spa Road. So I didn't feel that was very helpful. So I rushed out with a sheet of paper and asked people to sign it if they agreed with the fact that we need some sort of formal crossing on Spa Road so that pedestrians can safely cross. It does say on the information that I was given late yesterday, because I was not aware until then that I was to speak today, there are not 60 retailers that have signed. There were only 8. I spent about half to 3/4 of an hour walking up Spa Road from the first lot of shops above Countdown. So that was the number of shops that I went into. The signatories are the retailers and some of their staff, depended on who was in the shop, because it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Some police signed it because they were going into the pie shop, which I'm sure you're all familiar with on Lower Spa Road. And there were other people who were endeavouring to cross the road, so I asked them if they'd like to sign a petition for a safe crossing. And then all the other signatories were from the primary school, because all the little children who come down from Rangatira Park area have to cross by Countdown. That is not actually a legal crossing, it's a courtesy crossing. And I have stopped for some of those little children, and that's when I'm heading up the road, and then I've watched with horror as they've run to cross the 2 lanes that come down the road. And it's made me feel pretty sick. There are 10 side roads that feed in between the college and Countdown, and there's only one legal pedestrian crossing, and that's outside the college. It's a long way to walk if you want to cross. It's actually been suggested by somebody that the primary school children could walk up to the college crossing. That's a long walk for small children, and they still have to cross all the side streets. Not an easy thing to do. I'm just quickly looking at my notes because they were hastily put together this morning. There's a long, I think they call it a medium, flash medium, right down the middle of Spa Road, Lower Spa Road. It's very long, so people can make right-hand turns into Ruapehu, say, or Nukahau, and people use that as a 3rd lane, which I believe they're not supposed to do that, but it's there for them to line up to make their turns. So if you're trying to cross the road, you've got to negotiate that, 3 lanes of traffic, and then all the people turning in and out of the shops who are reversing in or reversing out or driving in. It's a pretty scary business, and a year ago I actually bought myself a high-vis coat to wear on the very busy days, which just prior to Christmas and since Christmas, Spa Road has actually become a total nightmare. The traffic on that I believe to be probably the busiest street in the whole town. And really, I guess I've kind of made my point that I don't think it's safe, and the council has an obligation to the people who wish to go to town so that they have a legal, safe place to cross. So I have a few suggestions here. I would like to see the speed reduced on Lower Spa Road, particularly for the cars coming down the road. They speed, many of them. They use the medium strip to pass, and one day I even saw a 4-wheel drive vehicle mount the grass because the traffic had slowed and that driver was clearly in a hurry. I suggest that you could put a zebra crossing just down from Repco. There's a bit of a space there. There are parking slots there, but they're not the most popular because they're away from everywhere else. So if they were blocked off, you could cross there fairly safely, and you would be crossing to the park, which has got some merit in it. The other alternative, which is not so attractive, is put traffic lights at the end of Ruapehu Street, and that would slow the flow. And the only other thing that I could think of was we're seeing a lot of traffic coming, I believe, from the bypass, including a lot of trucks, and perhaps if that particular alternative to leave the bypass was closed off, that might help us.
Right. Well, thank you, Jill, for taking the time to come in. Look, I'm sorry to hear that you didn't receive the right responses when you went to council. So that's disappointing. Secondly, I hope you know that you can talk to any of us as councillors any time to talk about that sort of thing, and we will take it further.
Thank you.
So
fortuitously, I did ring John yesterday.
So you can come to me or anybody for any of these things, because we take them seriously. So please remember that in future. And I absolutely have sympathy for the whole thing, and very supportive. Any other comments or queries? Yes, Councillor Park.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Jill, thank you for bringing this to us. It's really timely because we're currently going through a transport strategy, so this information will be really helpful to feed into that. And I remember years ago there was actually a pedestrian crossing from Countdown across to the Spargate shops, so I'm not quite sure where that disappeared to, but very really valid points, and you're right, it is one of our busiest streets in the town centre, so thank you for having the courage to bring this to our attention and talk to us today.
Thank you for listening.
Oh yes, Madam Chair, I've just endorsing Councillor Park's comments. Yes, I don't know whether Groundhog Day is the right expression, but we did actually have measures, in the long-term plan to put traffic lights or options of mitigating increasing safety, etc. Yeah, but with the transport management strategy, obviously there will be some resolution here. But thank you very much for coming and presenting it.
Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to make a comment, at an access meeting, not yesterday, but the last one before that, an issue was raised with the crossing up by, the Rhoda Car, the shops up there. And Claire, I can't remember the staff member Claire's surname, but Claire made the comment about certain criteria has to take place to get a crossing. So I'm just wondering if Mr. Strongman may know a little bit more about that. It's part of the bureaucracy that we work under, so I'm just wondering if we've got some knowledge on that. Oh, sorry.
There are a whole lot of wireless and some of them are at our push.
So probably rather than Dennis doing it now, because I know there'll be a whole lot of other considerations that go into it, is probably something that we need to work on and bring something back to you, looking at the whole area. That's right. Yeah.
So, having said that, I agree, and that's what I was going to suggest, that we get the council staff to look into what can be done and how it can be done with the correct procedures and so on, because we're totally in agreement that something needs to be looked at. And thank you for taking the time to talk to people and gather the signatures. And as I say, once again, I'm sorry that it didn't actually happen sooner for you. So please feel free anytime.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm going to be like I normally am.
No.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Lewis, because one of the things that the people that Mrs. Richardson deals with would also probably like to know what the ins or outs are for getting something done, because that would then be corresponded that way, rather than us trying to go through the staff, which would take 6 or 7 weeks. So I think that information would be quite valuable now. Entirely in your hands, Madam Chair.
Dennis, are you happy to give us some information, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, the primary requirement for a pedestrian crossing is what's called a pedestrian crossing warrant, and I don't have the actual numbers, but it's a product of the number of pedestrians that cross the road by the vehicle volume on that road, and it has to meet a certain criteria. And sorry, I don't have the number on the top of my head, but that's largely what it is. And then there is other site restrictions, if you like, depending on how close it can be to an intersection.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's why my suggestion is that we bring something back that Dennis can have, the team can have the opportunity to look at the whole situation, take into account what is there and what could be done, and then you can make a decision based on fact.
And can we do that with urgency, please?
We can bring something back to the next council meeting for you to have a discussion.
Great. That's it. Any further queries or questions? There we go. We're on to it. Thanks, Jill, for coming in, and yes, take care. Thank you.
Well, do we have to move that we accept the...
Yes, sorry. So, do we have a mover for the motion, please? Councillor Park, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Williamson. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right. Item 4.2. Welcome, Dennis. And so the contract for TDC 1718-240 Poihipi and Tirahonga Road seal widening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't. I'll take the item as read. In summary, it's for some seal widening on Poihipi Road, from Oranui Road through to Mapa Road, and about 1.9 k from State Highway 1 for Tirahonga Road, heading away from the state highway. There are 2 packages of work. We allocate $300,000 per annum for each of those 2 separate projects. The Poihipi Road job, the length that it is, it makes sense to do that length of road, and the 300k is insufficient to do that. We had to shift telecom cable, and if councillors recall, we reported that in a number of the monthly performance reports. And so there's insufficient funding to do that out of the remaining funds, so we're seeking to bring money forward from the 1920 year. And Turahonga Road will be done over 2 financial years. Take any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lewis. Just with part of the resolution, and it talks about the 200k from the allocated 1920 financial year be brought forward.
Yes.
So that's basically asking for unbudgeted expenditure.
Yes.
So I'm just curious as to why it's worded to be brought forward as opposed to asking for unbudgeted expenditure.
Because the money has been allocated in the next year, and that's how we worded it, that we're bringing it forward. Yeah.
So you say it's budgeted for the following year?
Yes.
But you want it this year, so it's only unbudgeted for expenditure.
Ellen will be able to give some more detail, but because it's in the long-term plan, and the annual plan, it's not a new project, so it's not unbudgeted in that respect. It is budgeted, it's just that it's budgeted in the following year. What you'll be doing is taking the loan slightly earlier than what you previously were, and by about a month. So there will be a very small financial impact in terms of the, assuming Ellen, in terms of the financing costs around that being brought forward.
It's a bit like the reverse of the bow wave, where last year we'd budgeted to do things that for a number of reasons hadn't been done by year end, so we've carried that over into this year. So this is like the reverse of that, a one-off situation of making it sensible from a contracting perspective to put them both together.
Right, and just to clarify, you know this is one of my pet hates, it has been for nearly 9 years. It is excluding GST, that figure. So that will be amended in the resolutions?
Through the chair, if you have a look at the recommendation, for the sum of 926,000 excluding GST.
And that number 2 approves 200,000. Yeah. Cool, thanks.
Yes.
Could just raise this. I have no problem with the issue, Mr. Lewis. So the 1920 year for that Poihipi Road part, we've got 56,000. That's it for that year. We're not going to end up doing the long-term plan this year, asking for another 300,000 for that particular road. Has already been expended.
That's correct. So this project will deal with the that section of Poihipi Road.
Yep.
If there were any funds left, and there should be 100,000 left, that will be used for design for other areas of Poihipi Road for the next section.
To help me with my maths, if I read this correctly, this year it's 300,000.
That's right.
1920 is 256.
There's 300,000 in each of the years for seal widening.
But not for Poihipi Road. Well, Poihipi Road to me, 300 this year, 300 next financial year.
Is 600,000, that's right.
256 and 300 makes 556. Then if we go down to the Turahonga, there's 300 and 307. So hence the reason I've asked is that only 56,000 less left for the next financial year, 1920.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
What was that? Any other queries? Thank you for clarifying that. Any other queries from councillors? Yes?
No, Madam Chair. No, I just think it's a very sensible recommendation, and I move the recommendations in. Thank you.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Williamson. Seconder, please. Councillor Rankin. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Thanks, Dennis. Item 4.3. So, welcome, Nick. Good afternoon. Pass this close. Oh, lovely. Yes, councillor Body.
Yeah, just have one question. Partway down, 1, 2, 3, about 4 paragraphs down, it says witnesses, hearings and independent commissioners are funded through unbudgeted expenditure. Does that always happen?
Yes.
That's part of the law. So somewhere along the line, do we put money aside for hearings such as this, part of the budget? Mr. Manhattan may be able to answer.
This has been a common practice for as long as I've been a council, which is coming up to 20 years.
So common practice for this council, but all councils?
Not for all councils, no.
Okay.
There was one point when we were going through the district plan review where council decided to put aside $500,000 in a future year for hearings. Lo and behold, we got to that year and didn't need about 400,000 of that. So it was at that point that it became patently obvious that there was inherent dangers in trying to forecast too far ahead in terms of your budgeting for something that could be very small or very large.
Any other queries, questions? No, that sounds fine. So it looks like we're all good to go. Do I have a mover for the recommendation that we approve the unbudgeted expenditure of $60,000 exclusive of GST for the purpose of hearing, deliberating and preparing a recommended decision for plan change 34 flood hazard? Yes, who said yes? Maggie, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Hickling. Thank you. All those in favour? And carried. Thanks, Nick. Item 4.4. Tina.
Yeah, just before you do that, have all of you seen December's financial treasury management report? Have you all read it? Yeah. Could I just then thank Mr. Manhattan for bringing it forward as he has with the short time space you had to get it out, so it came through in a different form, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Body. And yes, item 4.4, Tina.
So in terms of engagements, if you can add on to there, which you've got in your calendars, the 21st at 9 AM, which is the hearing with Local Government Commission for the representation review. It came in after the agenda was printed. And also note that on Tuesday the 19th, the PMG meeting will be cancelling that one.
Okay, so you'll take that out of our diaries.
Yes.
Any other changes or?
And the Zone 2 meeting, we still haven't received information about where that's being held, so we can't assist any further with that.
So we can't see if a councillor can attend, or we can ask?
Be a lucky dip.
Right. Is there anywhere nice it could be?
Within the zone. Within the zone.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. Just a thought. Anyone like to report on anything they've been to, seen, done? I've done several openings and things. That's the next bit? Yep. Rightio.
So this is really just the opportunity to put your name in there. If you don't go, that doesn't matter. It just means that we've recorded that, because the February meeting will be very close to the time it's due. No, I don't know.
Hello. Hello. Obviously this hair's getting to you. What's going on?
Excuse me, just through the chair, just in regards to the 21st with the Local Government Commission hearings, I just wonder, we probably need to discuss a date in the next little while where we get together as a council to discuss our submission.
Yep.
And who's going to present it and all those sort of things. So I'm not sure, as the acting mayor, whether that's something that you'll lead the charge on, and you've probably got the busiest diary of everybody. So is that something that we can make a note of that we need to do probably sooner rather than later?
So that date is, what was that?
21st.
So something in the next couple of weeks, obviously.
Yes.
Are you offering to organise it?
For Zone 2. Thank you.
Oh, right, okay. Right, so perhaps we can have a look at some dates for that. Tina,
To liaise with you to see what dates are free, and then put that out.
Yep. Okay. Great, thanks for the suggestion. So, perhaps not before. There's already one. Okay, see how we can get on with that then. All right, so do we have a, where are we, mover and seconder? Mover for the, thank you Councillor Park, and a seconder. Thank you Councillor Body. All those in favour? And carried. Okay, 4.5 members' reports, which I jumped the gun on. So I've done a few sit-ins and a few meetings and had caught up with a few people, been driving around the streets with one of our ratepayers to look at vegetation, which was good. Actually it was really helpful. So there's been quite a few things on the agenda, which is great. So has anyone else got anything they'd like to discuss? Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Park, I'm not going to speak for Councillor Park. We attended Damien Coote's farewell, and Anna spoke on behalf of
Thank you.
District Council. Oh, it was John.
And it was you.
Two Johns, Barry and Roseanne was there.
I didn't know you were speaking, so I left early.
I wasn't preparing to, but it was just that all of the other people involved with Damien seemed like that someone from council.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Anna. That's great. Any other reports or?
Yes, I'd just also like to congratulate Greenstone Entertainment on yet another successful summer concert. We hosted some people on behalf of the Mayor, including the Netterers, and I think a lovely afternoon was had by all.
It was. Another fantastic day. Managed to converse with several ratepayers from in and out of town, which was fantastic. Always managed to just start talking to, it's great. It's just a day where you really just do mix and mingle and really worthwhile. So, and it was very nice to meet the musicians on the Wednesday afternoon. Any other comments, Maggie?
Yes, I was out at Pukawa for the ratepayers meeting, and that's always a nice, pleasant experience. It's lovely to go there. I was also invited to Whareroa to, at the transfer station there, they've always had a small library, and they've spent a lot of time working with council staff and themselves out there, and they've built a whole new bit into it. And I was lucky enough to be invited to cut the ribbon for that at Whareroa, so that was a really pleasant morning. And also to the Omori Kiritau AGM as well. They've had a change of chair, but the old chair is still on the committee, and they look forward to another year of working with council.
Great. Thanks, Maggie.
Just one last thing, Madam Chair. This Rob is not really. I was up in Auckland a fortnight ago. I took the opportunity. I was seeing my daughters. I took the opportunity to pop and see David. There's accommodation, and I think he appreciated that. And I think it was also great to catch up and see how he was progressing. So we wish him well, obviously, and great to see him back in town.
It was great to see him on the AM show. Was it yesterday?
Yeah,
that was really good. He looked great, and he did a great interview. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, I'm the council representative of an Access Taupo, and yesterday we went to have a look at the wheelchair access or mobility access down to our hot pools. Because of, if you go and where the first entrance, which is County Ave, chairs I don't believe can get down because of angles, and it's also metal. So we started off at the Spa Hotel end. Now for probably 50 or 60 metres on the side of the shingle it's grass, that's good. But I was helping a gentleman in a mechanised wheelchair who had to turn around and get a van. Now the problem with having the van is the only way to turn around at the pools is where the coffee cart is, and that's not part of, I don't believe, our land, and that would have other cars, etc. Those of us that succeed in one motorised wheelchair to get down there, to come back, I was helping a gentleman, one that he's wheeling, and I tell you, it was bloody hard work. It's a little bit sad that we didn't make that provision, because a lot of them, they may not be able to get in the pool, but they like to go down there. The only quick suggestion I can make is if the gravel was the same as the path that leads down to the lookout was the same from the Spa Hotel end, I had a good crush or something, those and those mobility scooters or wheelchairs, whatever, may be able to make it. But it's something that Rose Prisk will probably come forward, but it was worthwhile doing, because that's one area they do wish to visit, but it's very, very difficult.
So are you saying Rose is looking into it, or?
Rose was the person that organised it. Is what we try to do is work out where the most difficult parts in the district are access for those sorts of people, whether it's a wheelchair, whether it's a person that's partially blind. We had a partially blind person with us, and he had a helper. So that's part of the deal.
I might have missed, but there's the road that follows up the stream. Did they use that or just the path?
Through the lock gates. So Rose had to go back and get a key. It's that road that goes
that
down.
road? No.
Then on your right you get that bridge that goes across, and that goes down to where the coffee cart is. So we've got two vehicles, one had to back up to turn around there to come back out, but that wouldn't be the norm.
Is that response to call coders?
It's part of our looking at those issues. Yep.
Well, it sounds like it's a worthwhile thing to be following up on all of that and checking the various areas. So you'll keep us informed, or Rose will, or...
It's a matter of making a judgment. About 2 years ago now, I walked with Colin, who's in the motorised wheelchair, and a staff member.
Yep.
I think it was Miss Haile Selassie, and we ended up at the Millennium Hotel or whatever along there. We drive down off the Napier Taupo Road. Now it's access to that cafe. Now access to the cafe can from the Lions Walk, with a plate put down by the cafe. You can get into the cafe. If you come off, which is now Wairaki Terrace, to go down, the footpath on your right, so your left, is too steep. So there was talk of a footpath going down the other side. So there was a letter in the paper from a ratepayer who lives in that little street. I went and saw him, and I said, how many people per year would be in a wheelchair that wanted to go to the cafe from that end by the mobile part? And he said probably one. Now, I don't like wasting money, like most of you realise. That may be an area when we say, hey, that's not cost effective, but certainly having that better access off the line walk so they can get to the cafe. So they are the decisions that have to be made, and they're probably still in the mix at the moment.
Well, I think that was actually, that letters were sent out to owners in that street. So what...
And Claire's come back, and I think those letters may or may not have gone out again. Those in that street, I think there's two houses, and then you've got the apartments. Yeah, they did go out, and that was acknowledged by this house owner.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, yeah.
So you don't know the outcome of it? Anyone know?
It's probably part in the mix.
Dennis, you're not going to answer them? Anyone else know?
Anyway, it's noted, Madam Chair.
Right, yeah. I wondered about that too, because some people were saying, do we need 2 footpaths? But that point of view is probably quite pertinent. So...
And I remember because it was raised at the time, it wasn't necessarily access to the cafe, but access to the Lions Walk down that side. So that was the purpose of it. I'm not sure where it's at, so we can find that out and we can let you know.
Would tell you that you can go to the car park further along, which is off the lakefront down to where the toilets are, and get access there. There'd be very few people would park having to cross the road to go down there specifically to get to the Lions Walk.
Anyway, we can find out perhaps where it's at. For the owners, did they have to approve it, or was that a courtesy letter?
No, they don't approve it. We've got the right to put the footpath down there, but but it was a heads up and have you got any issues?
Right.
From memory, so a consultation letter.
Right. Okay, thanks. Any further comments? Yes, hello, Kirsty.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to note the 2 new events that we had in the Mangakino area. One was the Mango Summer Concert, which was amazing, right by the water, and locals organised it, and they raised $2,900 for our youth holiday program, which was a hugely successful day. And the other one was the Waikato River Trails did the Summer Sizzler, which again was highly successful, and that event, both those events will happen again next year. So yeah, just wanted to mention those, and yeah, thank you to the organisers.
Well done. I heard the Kinloch, whatever it was called, Kinstock or something, was quite successful. So, any other comments from anyone? Okay, so we just need a mover for the reports. Thanks, Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour? Aye, and carried. Thank you. So now we close the meeting and go into confidence. So can I have a mover to go into confidence, please? Thank you, Councillor Williamson. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. All those in favour? Thank you, and that's carried. So we'll just confirm that